what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy this. Let's talk some football. As Brian Kelly was sitting down with the Advocate NOLA.com and answered a lot of their queries, and of course, a lot of the questioning regarded Garrett Nussmeier. And what are the keys to Garrett Nussmeier succeeding? Now, before we get into what Brian Kelly said, I think we should take another moment and appreciate the setting that Garrett Nussmeier is operating under. Because, Jake, I don't know about you, I feel like there's almost more pressure on him than any player that I can remember in recent memory. The reason being, it's a mixture of team and individual pressure that I think has some unique elements that we haven't necessarily seen before, right? The team aspect is that they're going to be expected to take a step forward in year number 3. Brian Kelly said it for 2 years now. The year 3 would be the year. They have so much positive momentum right now, back-to-back 10-win seasons. Like they would have been expected to take a step forward in year 3 no matter what. But now, with no Nick Saban, are you kidding me?
Right.
The door's wide open, right? So, like, the team has to win, like, 11 games, really, if you want people to be happy. And that puts you in the playoff. Now, granted, maybe you sneak in with 9-3, right? But if you want to guarantee it, 10-2
this year.
Yes, 10. I shouldn't say 11. I should say 10-2. 10-2 would put you in the playoff. Like it kind of feels like it's 12-team playoff or bust. That's an incredible amount of pressure for a first-year starter to be under from a team standpoint. And then what about individually? You're following up Jaden Daniels, who didn't just win the Heisman, but had the best statistical season of any Heisman winner since like 79. Remember, we looked it up. Nobody even comes close. And so it's a situation where...
Well, while you're thinking, this is the same situation that Miles Brennan came into.
Yeah.
Long time, like LSU football player, never really had his starts. Actually came in some different times and would have some success. And everybody's like, okay, like you're losing Joe Burrow, and he's one of the best players in college football history. But you do have a veteran player who stuck around LSU. He didn't leave. He didn't go transfer somewhere else. He's been waiting for this moment. And Miles got it. Unfortunately, he has an injury that we literally never seen before, but he was playing well. Certainly in that Mizzou game, he was playing well. So it's really the same thing. Nussmeier is hung around, waited his turn. Could he be the starter? A lot of different places last year, without question, he could have. We've seen flashes of when he's come in. He's played really well, gets everyone excited, has the big arm. So him and Miles Brennan actually have had the same career to this point, and hopefully – you don't have an injury that the doctors are like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, and look, and Miles was playing well. Like, not just statistically. Like, that Mizzou game, it was really all clicking. It was so much growth from even the Mississippi State game, and unfortunately, it all went awry. Here's hoping it doesn't happen with Nuss. What I'm worried about from the purely statistical standpoint, Jake, is that Jaden Daniels was so enjoyable from a spectator standpoint that I worry that large swaths of the LSU fan base may have lost perspective on what a more realistic offense feels like, right? Because Jaden Daniels this year was every third down you're getting it. Every drive you're basically scoring a touchdown. Every time you have to have it, there's going to be some incredible deep ball, back shoulder throw that's going to blow your mind. I mean, we sat down with Chase Daniels on Snap yesterday, Chase Daniel, and I definitely recommend go check it out. It was so much fun, dude. But hearing him talk about, and this is a 14-year NFL vet, Heisman finalist, hearing him talk about Jaden's back shoulder throws, he was just kind of flabbergasted by them, by the consistency of them, by how good they were, how hard of a throw it is, and how consistently he can make it. So I do worry about Garrett Nussmeier just from a pure feel standpoint, that he could play really well, but it won't feel maybe even anything close to what you witnessed last year. So you've got the team pressure. You got the individual pressure. I think you raised a very good point as well, Jake, which is that even unlike a Jaden Daniels, where he was a wild card entering the mix, there's expectation on Garrett because he's been looked at for years. He's been watched and kind of groomed by this LSU fan base for years. And so understand, this is a player who, I think has the moxie, the makeup, but don't discount or don't take for granted just how heavy the burden is that Garrett Nussmeier is looking to shoulder this fall.
I will say the thing that's a little bit different, and this isn't throwing shade at Miles, but, Miles had other interests outside of football. Garrett Nussmeier is football.
That's true.
And that's what he's always been. That's how he was raised. His dad's been a quarterback coach in the NFL forever, and that's like really in his DNA. And every single time that he has free time, it's probably something associated with football. And so, like, we're talking about personality and mentality, being able to handle this situation. I don't know that it's going to work out. I feel strongly about it, but I know mentally it's not going to be something that he can't handle, right? Mentally, I think Garrett Nussmeier's always been ready to go. Like, you can't come in an SEC championship game against the number one defense in the country and play like he did if you've got a weak mentality. You have to be strong-minded. You have to have the ultimate belief in yourself. And so, like, I think that gives him an advantage going into this situation, that the expectations and the platform that he's going to be on aren't going to be too big for him mentally.
Yeah, and I would say even look at the bowl game, right? You can't go 98 yards, game on the line, got to have it without that same mentality. Stare down multiple 14-point deficits and find a way to win and get your team that coveted 10th win. So you're right. We have evidence that he has the mentality. The question is, does he have the consistency? And that was Brian Kelly's main point in speaking with NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, The Advocate, was that's what they're trying to get out of Garrett Nussmeier. And I know that, we don't really belabor the point because I think it's a bit flawed to do so, given the settings in which we've seen him. But you are talking about a guy that, is sub 60% completion for his career. You're talking about a guy who has 7 picks in just 219 attempts. Now, again, to be fair, the one game we saw him in which he knew he was a starter, prepared like a starter, got to play, was Wisconsin, and he was awesome. So that's why I say that's maybe a bit a lot. Like, I don't want you to get too hung up on those numbers. All I'm saying is that going into spring practice, that's the main thing that Brian Kelly and LSU are looking for is just a more consistent, consistent performance from Garrett Nussmeier in terms of decision-making and getting through his progressions and not aborting after his early read.
This is an offensive front that's going to give you that opportunity to be able to go through those reads and be more consistent. You're talking about, Pro Football Focus put it out there. We mentioned it. You've got 2 top 10 tackles in the country, including the number 1 tackle in the country in Will Campbell. We know the interior as well. Like, we know it's going to be solid. So that helps a young quarterback. Even though he's a veteran quarterback because he's been here a long time, still a young quarterback as far as starts. And so it is wild. Like, that's not the position that I'm worried about the most. Now, it's still got to go out there and prove it, but, like, it's a position where you have a guy that you've at least seen behind a really good offensive line against, some pretty good defenses that he's come in against. Now, receiver, like, who's going to step up, running back, that rotation, what that's going to look like. Those are bigger questions to me right now than maybe even the quarterback.
I'm very glad that you got Josh Williams at least at that running back position, although during spring he will be limited. But I'm like, yeah, bro, of course. Why? Don't make Josh Williams do spring, dude. That meant a 6-year senior. Do you remember? You would have been a 4th-year senior, but I remember spring ball as a 5th-year senior, just like, that felt like some busy work. You're like, I've done been here before, bro. Let's just, let's get through this thing.
I was a little bit different because of what I talked about earlier. Like, in 1 year, they brought in 2 5-star running backs and a 4-star.
Your playing time was threatened. Your playing time was threatened.
So, like, even though I was a leading rusher my junior year and guys left, I still felt like I've got to go win this job again in the spring.
That's fair. I guess the point is that Josh Williams, he's going to play, right? Like his playing time is not threatened. So if you want to chill with him during spring, I'm fine with that. Last thing on Nussmeier here, one interesting tidbit that Kelly had was talking about practice, right? And how
talking about practice.
Basically, like, that's where this all starts, achieving that consistency, right? And he was like, yeah, and look, I think when you're the backup, it's impossible to be locked in every day. And I think I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because at the end of the day, you kind of know you're not playing, you're not going to get the reps. Like, it's just not the same as when you know you are the guy. Now that you are the guy, you have to every single day. I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect every day, but you have to give everything you can every single day. And Garrett, because there's no hiding.
Right.
And Garrett Nussmeier now knows that, and he now knows that everything through that team is going to flow through him. So I believe in him, and we'll see. But again, recognize the pressure he's under and recognize that the goal for this spring will be to achieve a more consistent and even performance.
And also having Swan there from Vandy coming over, I feel like that's important because you've got another veteran in that room. Y'all can go through, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times, there's backup quarterbacks like Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel played 14 years in the league, played 5 games.
Yeah.
Played in 5 games in 14 years. Why did he last 14 years? Because he was always there for the starter, and he was always somebody that the starter was going to talk to. And I had some great ones that I was fortunate enough to play with, and Billy Volek and Charlie Whitehurst and Phillip Rivers trusted their opinion. He could come to the sidelines. He could have a conversation with them, and that is so important for any starting quarterback in the NFL. And different quarterbacks will, like, handpick their backup, and you can go to a new place, and if that guy's a free agent, you're like, hey, I want you to sign him.
Yep.
Because having that voice, and also, like, pushing you a little bit as well. Like a guy that started SEC games.
Swan means Nuss can't get completely complacent.
Yeah, and so I like having a veteran quarterback, and nothing against the young guys that they have on the roster as well, but they haven't started any games in the SEC. Swan has, and so I think that's going to be a valuable resource for Nuss in the spring.
Well, and that's great depth in case, the worst does come to pass, to have someone with Swan's experience there. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.